what is some key steps we can keep continuous learning alive? We can make sure the improvements are coming through and our team is growing.
The direct answer to your question is Kata.
How do we build and do the things that we want and we make them into a routine? Because once they're a routine, they happen without management. Again, anytime we've found that we let up on learning, we see a plateau and the level of improvements of the shop tends to drop. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care, right? Once they know you care and you really want their feedback, they come out of their shell and come up with unbelievable things. The biggest comment we get from visitors is, wow, it just doesn't look like anybody's rushed at all. We don't want to succeed because of heroics. We want to succeed because we're doing things the right way. At the end of the day, if you can show me where you spend your time and your money, I can tell you what's important to you.
Welcome to this week's Learning Club, where we're looking at continuous learning from Chapter 5 of Improvement Starts With I, which is a really great topic. And we are very fortunate and excited to have the Brenden Fritz with us today. He's a lean maniac, lean enthusiast, co-founder of Automated Drive Systems. He's based in the US and has been in the manufacturing industry for close to 30 years, I believe. So a lot of experience. He also spoke last year at the Lean Leadership Summit. So he has a wealth of knowledge, and we're really looking forward to the discussion today and getting some key takeaways from all of his experience when it comes to 2-second lean and continuous learning. So Brenden, welcome, and thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Yeah, so to start, I'm just going to play a real quick, brief overview video so you guys have an idea of what we do and how we do it, and then we'll dive in.
Are you looking for a partner to manufacture control panels for use in your products or manufacturing operations? Over the past 11 years, our team at Automated Drive Systems has been asking one primary question of ourselves. How can we become better and increase the value that we offer our client partners without sacrificing the quality of what we produce? In this video, we hope to demonstrate that a dedicated team combined with the latest technology results in an outstanding automation and control panel assembly partner for your organization. Through our daily focus on constant and never-ending improvement and lean culture, our people have made hundreds of improvements to our operation, cutting waste and increasing our value to clients. We have also invested in the latest technology and systems related to the production of your electrical control panels.
So we build electrical controls that end up, the way that I usually refer to it is we build the stuff that makes machines work. It took us a while to get over the hurdle of our engineer to order of, hey, well, we're custom manufacturing, so we can't apply a lot of things that apply to lean. But I made that excuse for myself for several years until I finally kicked myself one day and was like, you know what, if you can't, you must. And just decided that we needed to figure out how to make a standard process for building customized equipment, and that really changed the scope of our lean journey in a big way.
Brenden, thank you for sharing that video. It's an interesting point that you mentioned there around, your initial resistance because of your custom manufacturing, and that's such a great phrase that you use, if you can't, you must. Out of interest, what was that key mindset shift? And where did it come from when you went, actually, this is something we can do and something we should do? What was that factor that made 2-second lean achievable?
Maybe I'll back up just a little bit from the direct question, and then I'll get into directly answer the question as well. I would say that there's a resolution there that from the moment I found it, we found it out of desperation. So for us, it was Kanban. So we kept running out of stuff. We were getting to that point where, I think we were 6 people strong. The company was growing. Me as the leader, I needed to not be the one that had to make sure we didn't run out of things. I tell the story frequently of I gave one of the gentlemen a task and I said, hey, here's a bin of stuff. Make sure we don't run out of it, right? And the next thing I know, I get a huge invoice for a very small consumable part that's 20 cents a piece. $1,000 invoice for 20-cent part. And it's like, whoa, what happened? And so we took that, and I went back, and the leader I was at the time, I said, I'll just do it. Give it back to me. Right. And about 6 months later or so, we found ourselves up against the deadline, panicked. Hey, we got to build this. We got a couple days over a weekend to make this promise we made to the customer. Coincidentally, it was a special panel going to Australia, so the electrical codes are totally different than what we deal with here in the United States. So it was a very special, kind of a unicorn is what we call them now, right? So something very highly special, and we were under the gun. And so I made the determination that I'd be the one that would work the weekend and make it happen. And, 2:00 in the morning on Saturday, I ran out of that same consumable that a few months earlier I'd taken back control of. Right. So we have a phrase around the shop of you got to help others because sometimes you're helping yourself. Right. I failed to help myself. Right. I took it back. I kept my arms around it and my gatekeeping around it. And I ended up being the one that paid the price for that. And it was just literally a head explosion moment. And from some of the other manufacturing places I'd been, I was familiar with these little cards that help control things, and did a little Google searching and ended up Google searching free Kanban card template because I'm cheap and I didn't want to pay for it. So I wanted something free, and just eternally, forever grateful that Paul's website had a free Kanban card template. So after I downloaded it, I got taken to the video page of all the lean videos, and just like I said, so instantly, as soon as I saw the videos, I was like, okay, this is what we've been looking for. This is a way for us to get better. This is a way for us to continue to instill goal setting and improvement into the whole organization. So I would say, my comment of holding back, I'd say for at least the first year and a half, we were doing awesome. I mean, we literally, I'll share it with Edwin so everybody has the link, but we were really, really fortunate that we documented how bad it was. So we have a video from about 2 months in. And if you contrast that to a video we have that now we need to update again because it's about 2 years old and we just recently moved to a larger facility, so it doesn't match us anymore. The contrast there is just unbelievable. So the change happened, and the impact happened within 4 or 5 days. I came home and told my wife, this is going to be part of the company for as far as I can possibly see. It clicked at such a level, even though, by today's standards, we look at the things we were doing as, we were basically cleaning the place up, right? We really hadn't even gotten close to the level of really truly making what I would consider a 2-second improvement at this point, right? We had to start by just getting the clutter out of the way, and I found, that continuous learning. I'm so glad that Edwin picked me for this particular topic because I just absolutely love this. What we've experienced, we started literally 5 years and 2 months ago. So we found it in June of 2020. Those of you who remember what else was going on in 2020, right? It was a pretty tough time. We've experienced over the last 5 years, I would say 3 to 4, what I consider a plateau. What I view as a plateau is when the level of the improvements start to fall. Right. So when we see the team, when we'll go through it, when we go through our morning kata, our people are given almost 3 hours a week of dedicated time to do nothing but 2-second improvement. We make a distinction in our company between 3S and improvement time. And we did that as a response to learning. So again, that almost 3 hours spread across the week is not for cleaning. It is for improvements. And so we monitor, at the end of 2 times a week, we have a longer session that's almost an hour. At the end of that, we do what we call roundup. So real quick, we all get in a circle, and it's rapid fire. What was the improvement I'm working on, and which of the 8 wastes am I targeting? So we get feedback nonstop of what's being worked on, and we monitor that. So when we see that plateau, we know that's time of, hey, we have failed as leadership to help continue to push and grow people so that they're able to see the next level of waste, to be able to see what improvements need to be made at a higher and higher level. So anytime we see improvements kind of stagnate, or we see people reverting back to tasks that are really more cleaning or 3S than improvement, that's a sign for that improvement. And so just the training and continuously pushing that training, I shouldn't say push because I hate that word, right? Pulling people along through the method of training, right, versus pushing them to do anything. That's where we've overcome those plateaus. And to circle back and directly answer your question of, what was that trigger? For me, it was Kanbans. So we initially, again, we're custom. Well, how do we have, Kanbans for consumables is a no-brainer. But how do we have a Kanban that controls our production when every single unit is different, right? We have a handful of products we do, maybe 10, 20 times a year, but they don't happen back to back hardly ever. So and the range of our product is rather large. We build stuff that's 12 inch by 12 inch by 8 inch deep can, all the way to massive, a 72 inch height width is pretty common. So we do a lot of large aggregate and rock crushing stuff that they're just big. So even just how do we transport things like that through the shop are totally different from one job to the next. And so I'd convinced myself for a long, long time that Kanbans for production just weren't for us. And I guess I don't remember exactly what the event was, but I know I was standing at our CNC machine when it dawned on me, and I was trying to walk the operator through some sort of a problem they were having. And really the answer was, if this guy just had a card that he could scan to log into the timing system that would key up that job and that subset for the timing, it would eliminate all this. And it really just dawned on me of, I don't know if everybody's familiar with the concept of a production router, right? So a lot of times in production, you have a single document that outlines kind of all the steps, right? And for me, the awakening was, well, instead of having that one sheet that has to flow through and follow, why don't we just call our ERP vendor and have them customize it so each step prints on its own card with its own timing barcode, and then have the production scheduling just pre-propagate those cards into all the cells in the order and sequence that the material is going to come through. And like I said, I very much remember seeing that and being like, whoa, why did we not think of this before? And I've had that a lot. But that one really pushed us over of, that concept of if you can't, you must. I robbed that one from Tony Robbins. Like I said, really that event set me apart of, I had convinced myself for so long that Kanbans couldn't work for the way we, because we're special, but we're not. Right. And I think that for me, that unlocked a whole different level of our lean is that we got to get out of the concept that each business is special so we can't use the tools. And that the more we focus on how do we use the tools and adapt them to what we need for our unique situation, we've unlocked all kinds of things. That ended up leading to us re-looking at the concept of, in the video we touched on, the most control panels, at least in the United States, are built one person, one panel. So one guy gets a set of sawhorses, put the things on there, and everything happens right there. Moving that to a cell-based construction and finding software that would match with that cell-based construction and moving that product through the shop, having multiple people touch it, it's light years ahead of what we were doing. But 10 years ago, I would have very long, very stern discussions with people who tried to get me to look at anything other than one person, one panel, right? No, that's the way it was, right? To me, you look at Mercedes is very heavily in their marketing of the AMG engines, right? It's one technician and he builds that whole engine, and that's the way to have quality, right? I'm not saying for their thing that's wrong, but I took that into my business, and I literally probably set us back 8 to 10 years with that belief. And so it really comes again back to that, anytime I find myself trying to make an excuse for why we can't use something that I've seen used somewhere else, to me that's now a sign of, hey, we have to figure out a way that how can we tweak this to make this work, right? And that ties back to where we have to train that into our people so they have that same mindset and that same attack of, hey, okay, if I think I'm at a roadblock here, let's pull back a little bit and let's get creative and figure out how we make this tool or how we make this concept work with whatever constraints are at that time. And that's just made a huge, huge impact on where we've gone in the last 5 years.
That's such an awesome answer, Brenden. And I love, the key thing about Lean Right is making our lives easier and of course our customers, so that moment where you realize, hey, this can actually help me and help my team is such a relatable, example. And it's the beauty of Lean. It allows us to see, hey, there's a better way of doing things. And it's certainly relatable for, I would think, anybody being in a leadership position to be trying to take things back, because we don't have enough time to teach that properly, or that traditional bottleneck. So it's such a good example, and awesome to hear how that changed your business and was sort of the roadmap going forward to start off with such a key lean tool as Kanban, and how that's transferred through.
Sorry to interrupt. I came across a quote the other day that I think lends itself perfectly here is, you do the best you can until you learn a better way, right? And I think that is lean. right? We all do the best we can until we see something else, until we get inspired by a different idea, until we read a book, because we're continuously learning and it sparks some sort of an event, right? So it's do the best you can until you find that better way, and then go do it the better way until you find the next better way, until you find the next better way, forever and ever.
Absolutely. And that's continuous improvement, isn't it? Aiming for perfection, although we'll never achieve it. Continuous growth. Out of
Precisely.
interest, so obviously you shared, a key way. Would you say that Kanban has been the biggest impact in your organization, or looking at 2-second lean and continuous learning in particular on your journey, what has impacted your organization the most?
So I'll answer with a fairly broad umbrella, but I really feel that it is what it is. To me, the biggest impact that Lean has made for us is the impact it's done and relate to our culture. When 5 years ago we had some pretty happy people that came to work and enjoyed what they're doing, we now have a team of 20 people as of right now today, that for the most part, all of them love to come to work. Right. We do gratitude every day as part of our morning process, and it is at least 2 to 3 times a month unprompted. Somebody gives some sort of a story I love my job. I love the people I work with. I took this concept I learned here and I applied it in my life, and this is what it did. To me, that's really what it's all about, right? It is, at the end of the day, the way that we look at it, what we do to stay in business is produce electrical controls. What we really do is grow and develop people who can help us improve the process of building those electrical controls. And here within the last year and a half, we really even worked that in at the interview stage for new people to join our team is, hey, look, I don't just want you to make the widget. I want your help and I want your engagement nonstop, all day, every day, to help us make it better and better and better. And I think the outcome of that is amazing.
Out of interest, a lot of the way you frame things and previously when I've been looking into the way you talk, there's a deep-rooted humility when it comes to, wanting to help people, but also being able to, look and say, hey, there's a better way of doing things. I've got this wrong here. It's not something that comes naturally to everybody, but obviously it's a key part of 2-second lean and being able to continuously learn, right? You have to be able to take feedback. Where did that come from? Or is that something you've always had? Or is that something that came with lean?
I guess I'll be honest overall, I feel I'm a fairly self-aware person just in general, but that's honestly, I try to be that, but I'll be honest, there's times that I don't see that in myself sometimes. When I read 2-second lean for the first time, not that I was a completely cold-hearted person before that, right? But I was really, really moved by Paul's comment of ego will blind you to what you need to learn the most. Mm. Right. And I really think that that's true. As we've implemented lean, we've seen iterations of that. We have people who are no longer on our team. And if you really look at the core of why that happened, not in every single case, but in a lot of them, it's an element of the ego, right? They did something and they were then frustrated because somebody did it a different way, or, there's all kind of manifestations of that. But really, at the end of the day, the more you can just say, hey, let's look at this objectively. And I think most of us, it's not necessarily the first response. A real quick side story. I recently started a website to have peer-to-peer sharing of information for the electrical design software that we use, because it's a void I found in the industry, right? So no profit motive, peer-to-peer, hey, let's go share and grow everybody. Comment got put on the forum of that website recently that was, hey, just so you know, if this needs to grow, it's got to be way better than it is, right? So my first is, man, I wish this guy had some idea of what's gone into just getting it to the point where it is right now. Again, when you find the little hairs on the back of your neck standing up, or when you find yourself in that reaction type mode, again, from self-development, the people who are most successful decide the outcome they want first and then take the action, not react and see what happens. Right. And I think that's really what comes down to that humility is what I really want is for the business to grow and develop. But what I really want is for having a whole lot of happy people. So just like in the website example, right, what I need to do is check my ego. Hey, I don't even know what this guy's asking yet, right? Okay, how do I engage with this person? If I snap react at this person, I'm going to get a snap reaction back, and there's no outcome that's going to be good for either of us, right? It's going to turn into an argument, right? But by checking that ego and being humble and saying, hey, you know what? Yeah, we plan to continuously improve this thing, right? No matter what the thing is. Now you get a better path and you get the person on your side. And, again, it happens in all interactions with us humans, right? We love to propagate and build up the concepts that we think are right at the time. You do the best you can until you learn a different way. Then somebody ruins our world, comes up or shows us a different way or a better idea or a new improvement. And now all of a sudden we have a new lens and we can look back. If you don't have that snap reaction to begin with, in my opinion, you have a much better communication ground, and that's where real growth happens.
Yeah, such a fantastic way to look at that. My key takeaway from what you said is actually when you're humble and you don't snap and you take that feedback or engage in discussion, that's sort of part one of making life easier for your team, making life easier for yourself, and having a better result for the customers, which I feel like sometimes could be easily missed when you're first coming on board with Lean. But it's actually such a good point. So thank you so much for sharing that story. Looking at continuous learning and keeping it alive, because as you mentioned, plateau is such a good word to describe what I think most organizations experience at some point in their Lean journey. What is some key steps that we could take away that when that happens, or to pick it up early, we can keep continuous learning alive, we can make sure the improvements are coming through and our team is growing?
I think the direct answer to your question is Kata, right? So in Lean, it's how do we build and do the things that we want, and we make them into a routine, because once they're a routine, they happen without management. I very briefly touched on our intro to Lean. Prior to that, we had tried all kinds of different programs, and none of them really worked. Well, none of them really worked because we never really truly made them a kata, right? We never really truly established and stuck to, this is the pattern, this is the way we're going to do this. And, I'm unbelievably blown away. Since starting Lean, again, in June of 2020, we have missed doing our morning kata one time, right? The program we did before this, if I left for a couple of weeks, I'd come back, hey, how'd that go? Well, this came up, or, oh, well, this fire got put out, right? And a few months into Lean, we had an urgent, right? It was the whirlwind of the day hit us, right? So we said, okay, we'll do Lean in the afternoon because we got to get this out for the customer, right? And then the day got busy. The next day it was, oh man, we didn't do this. And the group of us got together and we decided never again, right? And so we put a schedule. So we made, what you see on the screen, we revise this every 6 to 8 months to make sure that it's serving us as a manufacturing company. Some of it is, again, this has to come from the leader because there is an incredible expense to this. But there is also an incredible outcome to this. So again, we start 7:30 a.m. and it's about 9:15 a.m. before we actually go to produce a single part. So we spend a little north of an hour and a half every single day building absolutely nothing, doing a period of a quick stretch. There's a minimum period of 3S every single day, and then a minimum of 15 minutes of improvement time every single day, and then what we refer to as topic of the day. So as far as it relates to continuous improvement, the Monday session, every other week, it's either Lean training. So myself and the other operations guy, we have to be learning at a pace higher than everybody else so that we can help everybody else learn and continue to teach them. Again, anytime we've found that we let up on learning, we see a plateau and the level of improvements of the shop tends to drop or become stagnant, which sometimes is worse than having it drop. If it drops, you can see what's happening, right? So it's either Lean training or systems training. So we'll review, processes or procedures or software or what have you. Tuesdays and Fridays end up being from 7:50 to 8:45 of that dedicated improvement time. So again, it's separate from 3S. It is go fix what bugs you, go make improvements, do everything that is traditional 2-second Lean, right? And then from a learning standpoint, Thursday is my absolute favorite. So we have a Kata of Thursdays is cross-training day. So on a 20-week rotation, if we have 20 individuals, every 20th week, it's my turn or whoever's turn to have to get in front of the group for about 40 minutes and teach them something. So we don't require it to be business related because really it's knowing something at the level to teach it. It also helps reinforce for the trainer. But I also know absolute certainty we have changed people's lives by providing them an environment and the encouragement for them to be able to stand up in front and present to a group of 20 people. My wife, a few years ago, maybe 2 years into Lean, we had one of our team members get married. And this individual, when it was their first turn to present, they were nervous, right? You could see it, sweating, kind of red, very tough time. It was supported, got the person through it. The next time they were a little better. The next time they were a little better, right? They'd been with us for maybe a year and a half at the point they got married. I think I was in Japan for the wedding. So I wasn't able to go, but my wife went. And when I got back, she was like, you know what? You would be so proud of this person. At the wedding, the spouse got up, had the note cards. You could tell was visibly, nervous to present their wedding speech. And the person that has worked and still is with our team got up and just nailed it, right? No note cards, commanded the room, had eye contact, right? All of the things that we give feedback every time somebody does a presentation. I know for a fact we have changed lives, and we also learn a tremendous amount because we're constantly doing that. And then the last portion of our morning process is on Wednesdays. We do book club. So our process for book club is everybody gets a printed copy of whatever book we're going through. And then we find it on Audible. We go chapter by chapter and keep notes and have discussions of what were key takeaways, what resonated with people in this. So again, the more you learn, the more you know. And so our people are getting anywhere from 3 to 5 books, and we do all kinds. We've done self-development books like Think and Grow Rich. We've done a book that the Creative Act. All kinds. Waking My Ikigai. Right now we're doing Getting Things Done. Right, the time management system. And again, it's the more you focus on it. And to me, the whole foundation of continuous learning comes down to, at the end of the day, if you can show me where you spend your time and your money, I can tell you what's important to you, right? And that's really part of why we do the morning process that we do, right? It comes first, and really we want to show people that this is the most important thing we do, is improve ourselves and continue to expand our minds. Then we can go into how do we sustain the business? How do we serve our customers? But it all stems from, again, having that kata is the most important thing to get it to stick.
To summarize, well, I would say make it non-negotiable. It's going to be a top priority, and build a system so it can't fail. Is what I've taken away from what you've said there, which is really awesome that you've got that in place. Out of interest,
momentum is a terrible thing to waste.
Yeah. That is a good one. Momentum is a terrible thing to waste. Out of interest, Brenden, do you ever take lean outside of your team and organization when it comes to your customers or suppliers? And if so, how do you go about implementing that? And do you have any key steps or experience you've found trying to inspire lean outside of our organization?
Yeah, I do. I think just as the evolution of our business through lean, our factory has become our number one salesperson, right? So knock on wood here, as of right now, 100% of the potential customers who have visited us in the last 3 years have become customers after seeing our facility. So as a result of that, we very routinely get other people, hey, can you help us? Hey, what are resources? I think the most important portion of this, which again applies to everything lean, is no push, all pull. The way that I look at it, at least, is I will do anything I possibly can to help anybody who asks for help. Right. So it really becomes, and Paul touches on this in 2-second lean as well. And it really works its way into most books that are inspired by 2-second lean. When you give without expectation of return, magical things happen, right? And that includes when you just give wholeheartedly and show people what's working for you. We give 2 to 3 public lean tours a year that are scheduled. We have a whole routine to them. Our people put on stations. It's a really fun event, right? In addition to that, we give anywhere from 10 to as many as 35 private tours where somebody just wants to come and see the facility one-on-one, whether that's a potential customer. We actually allow competitors to come in and see what we're doing, and we'll help them. And really, once you get that wall down, that's really where communication can open. So again, I think regardless of whether it's a customer, a supplier, a vendor, whatever, lead by example, right? And if you look at the way Paul recommends starting 2-second lean, go to the bathroom and make it an example of what you want the whole business to be, right? The same hold true. If we are an example of what we know works for us and we show people and we're open to have people experience that, curiosity is going to spark in the right people. From that, it's okay. Hey, here's the books. I'll send you copies of books. Here's the information. We'll come up and spend a day with people. Hey, all right, let's walk through. So we've had customers who have been inspired, gone and done the books, had success sometimes in small teams. Some people have really applied it. So we actually have a vendor that we they came, they saw. They now have several branches of it that are operating on 2-second lean. They've really expanded it. They've asked me to come speak at some of their events to help them share other customers to it. But again, I just got an email earlier this week from a company that came through about a year and a half ago for a tour. And they were interested. They found I'd spoken at a regional event. They were awesome. They came to the event. They were really gung-ho with it. And then we didn't hear anything from them. And then earlier this week, he reached out asking for a little bit more resolution on a topic. So I quickly made a video for him and sent it off. Right. But in his request video, he shared, hey, you know what? We were so blown away by what you guys do with the Kanbans. So we've implemented Kanban in every single work cell. Right. For me, that's the most rewarding email I can get. Right. Hey, show me what people, I love people love ideas. Right. But it's really about what you implement. Right. It's not about what we know. It's about what we do. But I found just zero push is really the key. Right. The people who are curious. Right. I will spend as much time as I possibly can with somebody that's engaged and wants to learn. Right. And I think that's really the key is that you have to just have a genuine, I want to share this because of what it's done for me and what my experience is. And the people who resonate and get on board with that and want more information, by all means, let's help them as much as we possibly can and continue to grow the 2-second lean community. Like I said, I've only been a part of it for about 5 years, but even in the 5 years I've been part, it's exploding. Right, we're getting into that exponential takeoff of the eventual adoption curve. Right. Okay. So we have, for me, I really read the way I read Paul's book is if it works for you, you have an obligation to share it with other people. Right. But it's not you have an obligation to force it on other people. Right. So again, all Paul, let the people ask the questions, answer as much as you can. Let people come in. Seeing it is way different than reading about it or conceptually understanding it, and we see that a lot, both with suppliers and vendors, is we can talk to them about it as soon as they walk through the shop floor and they look out. Oh, okay, I get it.
Brenden, you've prioritized your first hour and a half to basically learning and experimenting with your 3S and putting it into a routine. So I've never seen somebody actually put it really into a routine like that. And like you say, once it's there, it's in stone, and then you just follow that. What advice do you have for somebody who is falling behind with production? They have to do overtime in that. And now you're saying, make time in the day to stop and fix things, right? I mean, it makes sense to us, but how does it make sense to somebody who's falling behind and can't keep up? Where do you start?
I think ultimately it comes to running the experiment. If I go back to even just us when we started Lean, I gave the condensed version of my very long story about that, right? But when I got to the implementation stage and I read the book, the first thing I thought was, that's awesome, but I'm behind. There's no way I can give up production time. Right. And so my comment to my wife at the time was, I'm a smart dude. I'm going to figure out how to do this without that part because we can't do that part. right? And I'm grateful to my wife. She said, "Hey, dummy, don't do that. The guy put it in the book for a reason." Right. And so my first was, okay, we will do 10 minutes and we're going to do it for a month. And if we don't get the result, we got to give that 10 minutes back. Right. And I mentioned earlier, within 5-6 days, it was, oh my gosh, this will be part of forever. Right. And I think it kind of comes back to that, if you can't, you must. I remember on one of the trips that I made to Japan with Paul, people were asking about that concept of stop culture, right? Man, we can't stop and fix, right? And Paul's response was, you have to fix, you're having all these struggles because you're not, right? Once you stop and fix, you'll be shocked at how much time you have because you're fixing the cause of all the struggle. And I think that's really what it sums to is, yeah, it's difficult, and I think the leader can help with that, right? So I mentioned when we missed our one day of our morning kata as we were getting it started, right? That what made everybody comfortable with that was I said, hey, if we ever miss a deadline because we chose to prioritize this, I will make the phone call to the customer and brunt any heat, smooth it over with them, do whatever needs to happen for them to understand that this is how we get better for you, right? And so I think it's making it safe, and somebody has to just say, hey, you know what? This is going to work, and I'm going to run this experiment, right? I would not abdicate if you're getting started with lean doing an hour and a half every day. You're not going to get a benefit from it, right? You have to start small. Again, we started with 10 minutes, then we went to 30, then we went to 45. Then at one point in time, we went all the way to 2.5, and that was too much. Right. So the team was like, hey, this is just kind of dragging, it's a little too long. Let's shorten it. Yeah. And again, I think it's just like anything else with lean. You have to adapt to what you're dealing with right now. And what you're dealing with is always going to change. Mm-hmm. So you have to constantly review it. But that initial get-go is conceptually, you have to understand that you are behind in most cases, not all, right? Because your people are constantly struggling. And if you can truly eliminate that struggle, it's huge. We just talked about this earlier this week in our morning meeting is we need to pull more red ondons because people are just silently fixing, and the little things that get silently fixed don't get visibility and they don't get attacked at a higher level. And what we found is we had really little, it seems like a little thing, right? Oh, hey, this wasn't there. So I had to go walk to the other side of the shop and grab a tool. Well, if you have 10 people doing that 5 times a day, that's a huge thing. But if everybody's just quickly, silently fixing that and there's no visibility, that's a massive time. That's hours a day. Mm. And I think if you really look at it, in most cases, if you're that behind on production, a good chunk of the reason is either, you're taking every order that comes in and, there's just no control whatsoever to try and make it work, right? That's problem number one. If that problem doesn't exist, it's the people are struggling. Again, just lean and some software adjustments. We have documented we are over 60% less labor on everything we build across the floor in a 5-year period. Mm-hmm. We can now produce way more without having to massively increase. If I was trying to do the volume that we're doing right now today, the way we were doing it 5 years ago, I would need 40, 45 people to keep up with what 20 people do. And the biggest comment we get from visitors is, wow, it just doesn't look like anybody's rushed at all. No, they're not. Right? That's what we want. We don't want people rushing. We don't want to succeed because of heroics. We want to succeed because we're doing things the right way.
You said at one point, you were doing it for the first 6 days and you said, wow. What about that wow? Can you articulate that came from the morning that you realized, wow, this is working?
Yeah, again, I go back to that culture thing, right? You could just feel it, right? Mm-hmm. And again, the most valuable resource all of us have is our time. And when, as a leader or a business owner, you come to your people and say, hey, I trust you, and I'm going to give you the time to use your ideas to make us better. It's palpable. You can feel it in the air. And it only took first couple of days, I'm like, well, can I do this? Yes. Can I do that? Yes, of course. Right. So it's that reinforcement, because again, in most businesses, especially when you get to the level, the Gemba people who are on the floor doing the work, right? They've been told what to do their whole life. I don't want your ideas. Just shut up and do it the way that I told you to do it. Right. And as soon as you flip that, magic happens. And like I said, for us, it took 5-6 days, and it was like, whoa, we're seeing people more engaged. We're seeing people come in a little bit early to clean their area. We're seeing, right. And that's where it's just, when you give people the time. And every other program we did prior to finding lean, it was essentially us saying, hey, we want you to do these things that are going to move our organization move us forward in the way we want to go. But don't forget, you got production to get done. So you're going to have to figure out a real smart way to come up with the time to make all this happen for us. Right? With lean, it's, hey, here is the time and we want your brain. Let's go make things happen. And that level of trust really builds the foundation for the culture to thrive, in my opinion. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care, right? Once they know you care and you really want their feedback, they come out of their shell and come up with unbelievable things.
Hi, Brenden. Grant and I, we own Senator Boats in New Zealand, and we've got a team of 38 staff. Only being 5 months in, we've got about 3 companies that want to come and do a lean tour here. And Grant and I are both like, oh my gosh, it's not perfect yet. It's not doesn't look like feeding matters yet. And one of the groups that wants to come through is the Hawke's Bay Lean Cluster, and there's about 20 businesses, and a couple of them are enormous companies. And they've been doing lean for years and years and years, but they've never heard of lean made simple. They've got no engagement. They've got a really low level of engagement kind of happening. And so when we mentioned about what we've been doing and what we've noticed, it's obviously raised a few eyebrows. And my question to you is, are we crazy to even be considering doing a tour? And what would your tips and advice be?
Do it and schedule it as soon as possible.
Oh my gosh.
So here's the thing, right? Anything worth doing right is worth doing poorly at first. Tours are one of my most favorite things to do. Right? It's an opportunity for us to spread the word, but we have never yet done a tour for anybody, whether it was a public one or a private one, that we did not get just as much as we gave. Right. And that comes in a few flavors. One of them is, you want to see your people light up, give a tour and let them know these people are this. They're coming to us for this reason because of what you have done. Right. The engagement level of that is off the charts. One of the key things I'd recommend when you give the tour is, let the people who come for the tour talk to your people on the floor as much as possible. Right. Let them share. It won't be perfect. Right. The leaders typically have the higher level of learning because we have to, but don't worry about it being perfect. Don't worry about the advice being exactly spot on. Don't worry about it following a certain book a certain way. Let the people share it genuinely from how it's impacted them in their simple work. Share stories of just quick little simple improvements they've had. And again, the collaboration between the two, some of our best improvements have come from people coming through on a tour. Right. It's again, we have those blinders on because we see it every day. The people who come through a tour don't have that. We have tons of improvements that is like, well, you're doing all of this. Why don't you have this? It's like, holy cow, how did we possibly miss this? Right. Okay. Yeah, let's go. Right. And so it is tours to me are the epitome of that. Let's go genuinely give without an expectation of return. And the outcomes are unbelievable. And both people will learn. Right. We were talking a little bit before we started here of, I got stage fright big time a year ago when I was asked to present at the Lean Summit. Right. And really what it was is I got in my head of, wow, exactly what you just said, right? Is what I'm going to talk about good enough? Do I really understand this to the level where I can teach these people who are rock stars with this? Right. And the more, again, if we just check that ego away and we just say, hey, you know what, this is genuinely what I want to give. I think you'll see it'll be wildfire for your implementation, right? It won't be perfect. There'll be bumps in the road. Don't worry about it, right? But tour, both get your people out.
Yeah.
And like I said, I'd schedule it tomorrow if you could.
Because we've recently been on 2 tours and Edwin, all the group knows we've been on them, and they were amazing. They were 5 years down the track from where we are. And I think we're kind of been thinking, man, our place doesn't look like that yet. We haven't. So there's been an element of nervousness about that.
Yeah, but there's a lot of pride though. We're seeing people stand up in front of the group. Even this morning, we had one of our guys from the floor who builds boats standing up and talking on one of our values to the rest of the team. So there is some real pride like shining through. And at the start of the journey, those guys were all like, what's this about? We don't want to be doing this. And now that everything they're seeing it's not a threat, it's actually helping them grow. So, that's quite a beautiful thing actually when you see that go on. It's really that's what it's about, right? That pride that you see in your people when they start standing up.
Yeah, the other recommendation I'd make, if like I said, would be in around 5 months in, when you give the tour, ask them to come back.
Okay.
Right. Hey, this is where we are right now today. Right. Come back in 6 months. Come back in a year. You'll see it. You'll feel it, and hopefully you can give us even more improvement because we're going to be at a different stage at that point as well.
That's really good.
Right. Don't make tours a one-time thing.
Regarding like monitoring production and going down that track of measuring OEE, especially when we're building boats, and to measure that, we would be taking data from the welding machines themselves to understand the utilization, right? So this can be quite a threatening thing for the people that are using those welders, and why would we want to do that, right? But for me, we don't have enough information on our productivity now to know, where do we want to be in a year's time or 6 months' time. Because we can improve the process and continually work, and we've got improvement time up and running, and it feels like a big leap of faith that we're just doing all this stuff, but what's the uptime, or what's the how are we going to see the efficiency come through? Because we're facing some stern competition with costs.
There will be people who will disagree with my answer, and that's okay. One of the key fundamentals to me of lean is if you need a T-chart to justify it, you're not going to get it. Right? So while we monitor and we track the time that goes into jobs, and we have for about 6 years now, we know exactly what labor went into what step. Never once have we ever gone and said, hey, this is taking this time, we need to drop it to this time. It is all, again, it's pulling to get to a better result, is saying, hey, how can we fix this? How can we make this easier? How can we eliminate struggle? Teaching people to see that struggle at finer and finer and finer levels of detail as they grow and they learn with lean, right? So the overall operational efficiency type of a metric for me, I really don't care. I know if we're doing the small things correctly, the big things are going to fall in line. Now, again, I don't know the first thing about building boats, right? But just a recommendation I would make is look at the takt time that's required. At least in the United States, efficiency gets blamed for a lot of bad behavior, right? And so people get that connotation, right? So if we're forcing that efficiency, right, we need to drive this efficiency number to a certain metric. Let's make it happen, right? We're pushing, right? If it's, hey, in order to meet the demands of our customer, we need to produce a boat every 27 hours or whatever it is, right? Okay, how do we get that? How do we get to that takt time? How do we build that takt time? And then how do we make it repeatable to be able to do it over and over and over, right? And you can get really granular with this, right? You can break any subcomponent into its required takt time to match the rest. But again, with lean, the whole thing is, right, we want to do better. And at the end of the day, the customers pay the bills. Right. So in your case, it's, hey, the customer, in order to meet customer demand in the way the customers need it, we need to figure out how to make XYZ takt times possible. Right. And just eliminate the word efficiency from it and put it into poll where it's, okay, how do we work together and how do we work smarter and smarter every single day with this goal in mind? Actually, I think he spoke recently. I didn't catch what month, but I was reviewing some of the videos from past calls. Adam Allen from Utah, he has one of the most amazing set kata. They call it heartbeat, I think is what they call it, right? He has timers everywhere. Everything in his shop is dialed into a set cadence that repeats at 7 to 10 minutes, somewhere in there. I don't remember but I was blown away by that a couple of years ago when I went to visit him. It was one of the most set, and just everything dialed into that clock going off and what had to happen. Some jobs took 2 or 3 of those cycles. Some of them took one. Some of them took, hey, we got to get 2 of these in one cycle. But again, it's if you really put it again back to pull, not push. To me, targeting a random ratio under the badge of efficiency, there's a negative connotation that comes with that, right? So if you can set it up and portray it as, hey, this is the takt time. Hey, these are the little, break it down as granular as you possibly can, and put a kata to it, put a cadence to it, put a time to it, right? And it's really, hey, this is, in order for us to meet the demands and get the amount of boats we have to get built in X period of time, we need a takt time of this. Right now, our cycle time is X. So now we know the delta, but put the people's imagination and work to it, not, hey, we got to do whatever it takes to hit this efficiency number. Right. To me, we have a bunch of machines. Now, if you go purist with some of the gentlemen that Paul's very active with in the tours and the summit and things, they look at, if you own a machine, that machine must run. There was a whole discussion of this last year of, right, having a machine sit and wait for a human is death. Right. Well, honestly, what it really came down to is, at least in the United States, a lot of us operate at a very different margin. Right. We're not doing hundreds of millions of components at a fractional margin. Right. So I look at it as, I'm okay if a machine sits a little bit, as long as the pace at which production is happening is acceptable. Right. But it's never once we look at it just to revise and more of a quoting and a benchmark. Then there is no punitive to the amount of time it took to build the job correctly.
Brenden, one last question for me. Do you have a kata for your own continuous learning? Yeah. So when do you get time to read books? When do you get time to watch videos? When do you get time to apply those things?
I think a lot of it comes a concept, again, that I borrowed from involvement I've had with Tony Robbins over the years. So he talks of a concept of what he refers to as net time. And so net time is that there is no extra time, right? And so it is really looking, to me, I use the Getting Things Done system, and I have for a couple of years since getting introduced to it by Paul. When I know what needs to happen, again, we're in a very service business as well. So some days I get into, my day goes really quickly down the tube, and I'm very reactionary during the day. Right. But if I know, really, to me, I'm constantly watching for things that hit my radar that I want to invest time and research to. So I will catalog those and throw them in my GTD system. And if I'm sitting at the airport and the flight gets delayed 20 minutes, well, apparently my cat decided to join us. But if I get 10 minutes, okay, boom, right there in my reference material, I can pull it up and get to work and review that. And to me, that's really, right now, it's very difficult for me to carve that time. And I think that a lot of people in today's world have that same problem, right? And for me, it's that preparation. I'm always on the lookout of it. A lot of it comes through, I'm in half a dozen or more lean chats, of all kinds of different groups that are constantly, none of them that I'm in can I stay 100% up to date on. It's just not possible, right? But I monitor them enough to engage and help hopefully add value where I can. And then it's really, okay, hey, there's a cool idea. Okay, boom, put it in my GTD. I want to look at that at some point. And then anytime I have little bits and pockets of information, it's time to go. And then I do carve out about a half hour a week, no matter what, to prep for the fact that once every other week, I have to be able to stand up and talk for 45 minutes and help advance my group. But again, it's that no extra time concept of, hey, I always got something teed up. If I get a void, boom, I'm going to go use it for this, that, or the other thing. Yeah. Anybody who's not familiar with Getting Things Done, it is unbelievably life-changing.
Yeah. I'll put a link to the video down at the bottom.
Awesome. Thanks again for another great question, Edwin, and an awesome answer, Brenden. That is going to be us for today's Learning Club. It has been an absolute privilege to have you on, Brenden. Thank you so very much for your time. It's been a really valuable discussion. I've got probably at least 12 notes myself from all the valuable answers that you gave. And thanks for sharing your story. It's so valuable to learn and hear firsthand what you've done. And thanks to everybody who attended and the great questions. It's been a really great discussion and learned a whole lot.
Thank you so much. I enjoyed it greatly. And Edwin has my contact info. So Edwin, if you want to share it with the group, like I said, if anybody has questions, I love doing this. I'm really passionate about it, and I'd be happy to help in any way I can, even if it's just a quick question here or there, and anything in between. So
Beautiful.
Edwin will make sure everybody gets my contact info.
Just wanted to say what you shared was really valuable and really, really relevant. So I'm going to take that back to our leadership team, and you've certainly made our business better from it, because you had put it in a great way to focus on the pool. And I was in this middle fence area where I was like, is it bad? It's kind of valuable to know how much time has been wasted, but the way you said it was just like a light bulb moment. Focus on the pool and focus on the customer. We need to keep it under this time because, and how do we do that? Not you've wasted time. So I just want to quickly share that and say thank you for.
I appreciate that. Yeah. One of the worst things you can do is tie any punishment to lean, right? No matter how subtle, right? Because now it is a big brother thing, not a, hey, we're all in this together.
Yeah.
That's huge.
No, I love that. No, super, super valuable. Thank you, both of you, for a great discussion. I really enjoyed it.
And
you guys as well.
Yeah. And like Brenden says, like when you ask him a question, he's also doing the learning by giving you the answer, just reinforcing that, oh yeah, in that situation, I did it. Right. So and this is kind of the whole point of why I do this ANZ Learning Club, is to lift the level of lean in Australia and New Zealand. And the only way that we can do that is by tapping into the knowledge that's already there, not reinventing the wheel, but tapping into the amazing people like Brenden who have been through the hard roads. And so we don't have to struggle ourselves, but we can actually have that support, right? And these guys do it without like any reimbursement or any expectation of return, but just helping others is just such a human thing. So that's like and that's why I want people to lead this, because now you've made a connection with Brenden, and I'm sure Brenden, has got a good connection with you, and you can always go back and say, hey, Brenden, like, I need a mentor. Can you mentor me with this? and goes vice versa as well. So, yeah.